Hey guys, Joe here, back to the Word, today with another 2-minute book review. Remember to like and subscribe for content like this. Today's book is Providence by John Piper. Just over 700 pages. I'm on my way through it right now, and I wanted to share it with all of you for the amazing treasure that it is. So first up, who is this for? This is for anyone who wants to lean into the deep things of God, His purposeful sovereignty, and worship Him through it. Anyone can pick this up, but I would especially encourage pastors to pick this up. Whether you read it from cover to cover or just use it as a reference work, this is an amazing resource for the church, and I'm excited for it. Second, who wrote it? It was written by John Piper, who not only served as a professor, but also a pastor at Bethlehem College and Seminary and the church. Also wrote and started Desiring God, Christian Hedonism, lots of things. Desiring God, one of his major books. But this book was 20 years in the making. So that's what's really exciting about it, is at the very beginning of John Piper's career writing, he wrote on Romans 9, this idea of God's sovereignty, but also man's responsibility and salvation and Calvinism and other things. And this book was one of his end goals. He wrote on justification in Romans 9, but then he wanted to write a huge book on God's sovereignty, but it turned into a book on God's providence. Third, what stands out? I just referenced it. It's called Providence, not sovereignty. John Piper took about 20 or so years of research and other things to build into this work on God's purposeful sovereignty. You see, sovereignty is God's in control of all things at all times and he is in control. But then providence is when we put God's sovereignty with purpose. There's a goal. So he's over all things, but it's with a purpose. And so this book is covering that from Genesis to Revelation twice, actually. Piper splits this book into 3 sections. It's really cool. It's very accessible. The chapters are pretty short, but there's lots of them, and they're on amazing topics. So first off, he goes into some of the definitions and the dilemma around providence. Then he moves into Genesis to Revelation. What's God's goal? His purposeful sovereignty. What's he working all things for? We want to answer the why question. We know God from Scripture is in control of all things, but why is he doing all these things? That's providence. So he traces it from Genesis to Revelation. And then in part 3, he traces major themes. God's providence over kings, over fertility, over evil, over Satan, over salvation, over all these realms. And so if you're a pastor, if you're following Christ, and you've leaned into some of these things, you know that God's true, but also man has free will, and he's working all things for his purpose. This book is going to be a tremendous reference work and amazing piece for you to lean into and read, be it in sections and small pieces or the entire work. So I'd encourage you, go pick it up today, put it on your shelf and use it, and may God be glorified through us.